Welcome back. It's day 5 on the Advent Calendar Christmas podcast, and today I am joined by Elizabeth, founder of the Procurement Studio. After many years working in the luxury property industry across both design and build, Elizabeth has seen firsthand how complex and time-consuming procurement and project management can be for interior design studios. She founded the Procurement Studio to share her knowledge, network, and expertise in a way that helps designers focus on what they do best, creating extraordinary spaces. And as a consultant, her passion lies in collaborating with interior design studios to refine their systems, strengthen their projects, and unlock more profitability without sacrificing creativity. From streamlining processes to hands-on procurement support, Elizabeth provides the specialist knowledge many studios need but don't always have in-house. And I cannot wait to dive into today's conversation on the world of procurement and how to implement it into your interior design business and what you should be doing. I am so excited to dive into today's conversation with you, Elizabeth, because this has been a hot topic on all of my women's agenda when I coach and mentor them, and to have an expert on the podcast today, just purely to talk about procurement, I cannot tell you how excited I am. Welcome to the Christmas Advent Calendar podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And yeah, I'm very excited to talk all things procurement and interior design in the run up to Christmas.
And how we can make an impact in women's businesses in 2026 with this, because procurement is a topic I feel that a lot of interior designers that I speak to, you say the word procurement and automatically it's like, oh no, I don't think I can go there. Do you find that?
Absolutely. I think it can be a bit of a fear factor, particularly with designers sort of potentially early on within their careers. But I always say to all of the interior design studios that I work with, it's not something to be afraid of. And it is one of the simplest and easiest ways that you can be making money as a studio as well. So it really is a no-brainer. But what I also have seen in kind of larger studios, so a lot of interior designers, when they start off as juniors, will actually start with a lot of the responsibilities of procurement so often are delegated to more junior members of the team. But ironically, there doesn't seem to be much kind of training and education, university degrees, online courses focused on interior design. There's never even any addition about procurement. So a lot of the time, people are kind of going in blind, but also managing those responsibilities quite early on, which is why I think it's so important to talk about it.
Now, I find obviously with procurement, and like you've just said, there's, a lack of training and lack of knowledge, lack of education. When you find a way that works for you in your business and it becomes profitable and scalable, it actually becomes very easy. But where would you say interior designers lose time and money with procurement? Where are the pitfalls? Where are the downside? Let's just go into that first.
So there can be a number of challenges, and also just for the benefit of anybody listening, procurement in the sense that we're talking about it is, I like to say, it's the stage after the design. So it's strategic buying of goods, all of the products that your designers have worked so hard to pull together to source. You're the one actually going out, finding the best price, finding the maker, finding the manufacturer, getting and bringing all of those elements together, and then ensuring that it's delivered on time, delivered to a consolidation warehouse, delivered to site on time, installed, everything to that sort of final handover point. So when we're talking about procurement, that's kind of what we're covering. And there are a number of pitfalls that can arise. I would say it's not rocket science, but when it goes badly wrong, it can be a total nightmare, because no matter how brilliant your designs are, if you are unable to execute them, then unfortunately, that's not a good interior design service. So I think some of the challenges can arise from really simple things like mismanaging your supplier database. I always say that your supplier database is one of your strongest tools as an interior designer, and ensuring keeping that up to date, treating it as, I always say, as a living, breathing thing. Have you checked in with your account managers? Do you know that you're getting the best trade discounts? Having that kind of set of eyes on it and giving it the attention that it needs is one of the easiest ways to kind of improve your procurement strategy. Equally, when that gets neglected and perhaps you're rushing to place an order and actually you haven't even set up a trade account. It's such an easy win for the studio, but such a waste if you're not doing that. And then I guess on a larger scale, when procurement goes wrong and people aren't necessarily using a software or a particular system and they have no strategy in place, they don't know what's been ordered when, they don't know their markup, they don't know their margins, and it's guesswork. And they're hoping that things are going to be delivered on time. They're hoping that they're going to make money from it. But you can't build a business on that kind of approach. So I think that those are the areas I see the kind of biggest downfalls in.
And for an interior designer starting out in the industry, wanting to get into procurement, obviously, we've got the concept, we've got the design development, and then they obviously send it to the client and present it. And the client then turns around and says, oh, well, I want you to be able to order all of it and install it. And there's a bit of a stall moment with the designer because they don't know how to do it. What would be, for an interior designer potentially starting out, the advice that you'd give for 3 or 4 easy ways to just start or handle procurement? Like, is there a good software or a system or a little tip?
Absolutely. So there are a number of different pieces of software that are out there. I have worked on my fair share of them. Anyone who has been in the interior design industry for longer than 5 years will have heard of Estimac or SDPC.
Yes.
That was the most popular piece of software for a very long time. And I would say only within the last kind of couple of years, some real competitors have sort of new players in the market have come and delivered some really fantastic pieces of procurement software. My preference is a piece of software called Programmer, which I think has some really sort of fantastic features. So beyond just the procurement side, it has a client dashboard and an interface when you can share your documents, and it has some really useful tools that I found to be, fantastic. I would really recommend taking a look at them. You can Google procurement software interior design. You can do a trial on most pieces of software. Have a look. I've actually got a little series on my Instagram as well, sort of reviewing different pieces of software, because different software will work better for different studios. So I think it's a really good idea to go through and trial them, see what you gravitate towards, and go with that software. Once you have that software in place, it's all kind of about sort of putting in a strategy that's going to work for you in your studio. So I always get not nervous or sad, but I always think it's a shame when I hear clients say that they've done this brilliant design, handed it over to the client, and then the client's just gone, oh yeah, like I'll order it myself. And I go, no, this is the perfect opportunity for you to kind of position yourself as a higher end studio. And so one of the ways that I really encourage my newer studios to kind of achieve this is I say, build your team. So it might just be 1 or 2 individuals like running a very new studio. I always say build your team out. So suddenly you've got a procurement at email address. You have got an accounts at email address. And I think that as a little tip is really useful to say, oh, I'm going to have to pass that over to my procurement department, or I'll have to verify that with my accounts department. And it's all about building this kind of mentality of running a bigger studio and operating as the big successful studios do. So
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I love that, because we do that when I speak to designers that are in their early years, and it's kind of like good cop, bad cop in the design studio. I always say, look, why don't you put a receptionist, or why don't you put like an accounts department or someone in place where emails that are less emotional and more, not colder, but a bit more pragmatic and diplomatic can come from that email address, taking the emotion out of it. Because I think designers get so emotionally attached to projects, and it's all about people pleasing and just wanting to do the best, that they actually forget that they're running a business. And then you find that obviously they're leaving money on the table. And, obviously we teach how to profitably price from concept and design direction and specification, as well as procurement. But we find a lot of designers are so scared to go into that procurement. And that's actually, if you had a design project where you might be charging £3,500 or £4,000 in design fees, in procurement you can make another 8,000 or 9,000 potentially, and that's where the money happens, isn't it?
That's the thing. And so trade discounts are so key to that profit, and they are such a brilliant benefit to running an interior design studio. So I always think, again, going back to that supplier database, are you working with suppliers that are offering you fantastic trade discounts? And if not, why not? Are the suppliers that you are working with, we want to be putting forward products and items that our clients couldn't just wander into anywhere in the high street and pick off the shelf.
Yeah.
We want to be sourcing unique
Oh, yeah.
items, but with that, we also want to be charging fairly for that service. And when we're working with suppliers who potentially they only sell to trade, brilliant. We've already got an exclusive access to a product that a client otherwise wouldn't be able to source. And then making sure that you're also charging an adequate handling fee or procurement fee. There's a million different terms and ways that people will price that. And I've seen it done in a number of different ways. But I would say rather than giving a blanket figure, you should be charging this as a percentage. Have a look at what works for your studio. You can trial some different things, but ensure that you're pricing yourself fairly for the work that you're doing. It's a service and it deserves to be paid accordingly.
Now, there's a massive thing that I am finding and have found over the last 3.5 years where, and you will have heard this conversation most probably happen many a time, is should I be giving my trade discount away or should I give it all to the client or should I keep it and have a fee? There's so many different ways that you can work at it. And I know within our studio and what we coach and mentor, so there are many different ways, but we always say that do disclose part of that trade discount to your clients, whatever that might be, maybe full discount or 3/4 of that discount. Put a percentage procurement fee in. So we always sometimes work off a 30% procurement fee, but have a minimum room spend. Where have you kind of seen the procurement fees waver in the industry to and from, which would be sensible enough to benchmark? Like, are they so varied, or what would you recommend? Because obviously this is your zone of genius and this is what you coach and teach as well.
So you said it exactly. It is so varied. And I have seen absolutely every end of the spectrum, from clients or studios charging nothing to studios charging over 100%. It is vast. Wow. And so what I really have learned is that it really is particular to you, your studio, and also your clients. We need to take a look. What kind of projects are you servicing? Is it commercial? Is it residential? What types of products are you specifying? Are we just taking things from the high street where they can very easily see the kind of prices that they could, source the item for? Or is it a fully bespoke design? In which case we need to be charging a higher percentage. The only thing that I would say is to take a look at it at the beginning when you're sort of pricing the project and you're in that sort of initial phase. You need to sit down with the team that you have around you, so whether that's your senior designer, your junior designer, whoever, and look at the project when you are pricing it and decide at that point that is the percentage that you will be charging. I always try and get my sort of clients and design studios to avoid, we did this for this last project, so that's what we've done for this one. No, let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at this project and let's decide what's going to be the appropriate percentage for us to charge. And typically most design studios will work similar-ish projects, and so they will find a rhythm that works for them. I personally also do prefer transparency with clients. I think you can get yourself into a very sticky situation if you decide that you're going to put a higher percentage and you're not going to disclose. I think transparency is a really useful tool to have with your clients, and I think it builds up that kind of communication and trust, because particularly when you're working with residential, it is, a huge trust that they're putting into you as their interior designer. So I think clear and open communication about the percentages that you are going to be charging as your handling fee is a really essential foundation to kind of start your project on.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think also the one thing that we also communicate is, especially with that transparency, and I have known design studios to be really caught out by the clients where they've gone and said, oh, well, my friend's got that. Why am I being charged X? And this is why we also always say, realistically, I believe this to be right, but the studio, certainly for at least 12 to 18 month cycles, should be charging the same procurement fee per project with the same transparency, certainly until they have price increases or company changes. Because obviously, every time you do that or change that, you've got to change terms and conditions, you've got to change contracts, and then it's double handling documents, double handling work. And when you can find yourself getting into a rhythm of actually, these are the minimum spends, these are the procurement fees, these are the trade discounts, you can actually also pipeline forecast, which means that you can see actually how much the business is then going to bring in per project if it's going to get potentially procured. So, there are swings and roundabouts, but it is, like you say, it can be very varied to each studio, can't it?
Yeah, and I think that it's important, so particularly with the newer studios, to figure out what kind of is going to work for them. And that can happen through, we didn't charge enough for that project and now we've got to charge a little bit more for this one. But forecasting, like you said, is a really, really important tool that you need to have within your business in order to, forecast your sort of financial growth and all of those different really key elements. And so knowing that you have a solid procurement fee means that when you take a job on immediately, you can look forward and say, we've got those 3 jobs booked in over the next 6 months. We know exactly what our profit margins are. And that is so essential before you dive in. It makes me feel so nervous when I hear studios say, oh, well, I think we'll make about this on this job. And I say, no, we need to know that before we're starting, because as much as we love interior design, we're not doing this just out of the good of our heart. It's a business,
Yeah.
and we need to make sure that we have sort of confidence and security in the models that we're sort of setting ourselves up with. And so, yeah, being able to forecast for your projects is so important, so important.
Now, another thing with, obviously, when we go back to a comment that you made earlier on in the podcast about suppliers and understanding your suppliers and your account managers, for new interior designers starting out in the industry, it is very, very difficult to get those larger trade supplier accounts. What would your advice be for a designer in their early years that, can only feel like they can design on the high street and needs those trade suppliers? What would you actively be saying to them?
I say this to anyone looking to start out in interior design and expand their supply database. Attend trade shows. So we had Decorex, that's a
Yes.
interior designer sort of trade show in London where they have hundreds of suppliers in one place, and it is a really fantastic way to meet those brands face to face, introduce yourself, chat to them. They're there for, I think, across all of the trade shows, Maison and Objet, Saloni,
Yeah.
Decorex, they're for about 4 days. They're long days. The staff, they love to chat. They want to talk to you about their brand. It is such a good opportunity. And I would say this as well to anyone studying interior design or thinking about kind of making that move into the industry. Go and attend a trade show and talk to the different suppliers, learn about their products. I sometimes think designers who have been in the industry for a while, it can sometimes feel like a bit of a chore attending, and you go, oh God, I'm so busy this week and I've got this project finishing and this project starting. And I always say, try and carve out the time. It is always worth
Yeah.
your while. Make a plan. And when you go, speak to the suppliers, go and see, I haven't seen that person face to face. I'm going to go and introduce myself. And I always will meet a new supplier, we'll meet a new account manager, we'll meet someone face to face, we'll learn about a new product. And that's how we keep sort of growing and expanding. So anyone new, I would say that is my top tip. And also anyone who is established, I know it can feel difficult to find the time, but I really would encourage you to still attend and try and, invest that time in expanding your supplier database as well.
I love that, because I think it can be extremely intimidating when you're an early business and trying to ring up and they're like, okay, well, we'll send you a form and can you put 3 references on it? And they're like, well, I don't have 3 references. Where do I get these references from? And like you say, going and speaking, there's some, obviously I'm not being biased, and obviously, people like Bella Figura and Eco Trading and Libra Home and, Coach House, they're wonderful accounts and they want to talk to you, like you say, and they want to say, yes, absolutely, we'd love to have you. Even like RV Astley. I remember actually RV Astley were one of the first accounts that we opened up 9, 10 years ago, and they were like, yes, absolutely, don't worry, we'd love you to see our products and for you to use the products in show homes. And from there, it's slowly all your references grow and you get to, like you say, meet all the account managers and in your area, which is great. And then you start to build your supplier pool, don't you?
Absolutely. And you'll be invited to lovely events. And at those events, you'll meet other designers and other suppliers. And it's from there that your network will really start to grow, which I just think is so key in this industry. And it's a fantastic community. And I think it's a really nice opportunity to kind of expand your network and attend those events and meet people face to face. So it's not always possible, but if you can carve out the time, I think it really is a worthwhile thing to do, because it is difficult getting started, like you said.
I think designers find it really daunting, and it can be a very scary process to put yourself into a zone where you have to network, where you feel on your own. Because the one thing that I hear, obviously, I know you talk to studios, I more talk to women individually as their own solo businesswoman, but I find that women feel like this is a very lonely industry until you kind of find your design tribe or find your network or find your people. And it can be very intimidating sometimes going onto a stand on your own and trying to weave your way in and say, I'm such and such. And, like you said, but they just want to be there to talk to you, and they want to share their products and, get you onto their books and support you within the projects.
That's the thing, it's a business. They're there to sort of sell products. So if they can potentially find a new buyer, essentially, they're going to want you on their books. But I would say I appreciate that it can be a daunting industry from the outside looking in, but there are so many fantastic kind of community groups, whether it's, you do an online course and there's a WhatsApp group, or you join one of the many, many, many interior design kind of community pages, and you will find other people also starting off in the industry. And I've, as I'm sure you do as well, received lots of messages from people saying, I really want to get into interior design. Where do I start? What do I do? And I think sort of having, if you can find one or two other people in a similar situation to you, and you can say together, shall we go to Decorex? Shall we meet some? And it's much easier to do, when you've got somebody else who's in the same boat as you. So I would also look for community, and I can recommend a couple of places that I think are really fantastic, even just as kind of community boards to share their experiences as well. So
Do you know what I loved seeing this year, earlier on in the year for Decorex, was 15 of the women that are in certain coaching circles that I coach and mentor, they all met up at Decorex, and they all kind of got photos together, and, they all kind of mingled and had lunch. And I thought to myself, oh my God, that is amazing, because they were all individual designers, and now they're all making friends and they're working together and they're collaborating. And it's just so lovely to kind of see women kind of group together like that, isn't it, with communities?
Yeah, absolutely. And that support is so essential, especially when you're running a business. I said it can be incredibly lonely. And I think having other people that you can share those experiences with and say, I found this accounting side of things really stressful, and you just feel like you're not alone in it. That's what we all sort of really want, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, right, I'm going to dive into the trench now and talk about where things go wrong with procurement and experiences. I've certainly got a couple that I would love to share that I've learned from. I want to know if you've had any over the years, and what designers shouldn't do to make their life easier with, we've ordered the products, but
Yeah.
things can go oh so wrong until they're in the house. So
They absolutely can. So from the point that you have sort of sign off from your client saying, yep, go ahead, we've deposited the money kind of into your bank account, let's go ahead and start placing those orders. So to start right at the beginning of that sort of order placement, working or placing orders with suppliers who you have not worked with before. I'm not cynical, but I would rather err on the side of caution because I have had experiences where I have been burnt in the past. I have placed an order with someone in good faith, and before you know it, they've gone into liquidation, they've disappeared, they haven't replied, and you're going, oh my gosh, they have my money, they have my client's money. Who's now
Yeah.
responsible for this? Well, me or my design studio. And when you're a new designer, that's a really sort of daunting prospect. So right
Yeah.
in that early stages, I would say if you're working with a new supplier and it's kind of like a small individual, I would try and get some references. Have you ever worked with any interior designers, based in London, based in the Midlands? Could you just give me their contact details and I'd just love to contact them for a reference. It feels time consuming, but it's worth it if it saves your pennies. And then really basic ones as well, like paying with a credit card if you can, versus making a back transfer. Again, it's that additional security. You can always ask to pay via a payment link. They might not allow you to, but it is worth asking. And also having the right types of insurance so that if something does happen, you know that you and sort of your business covered. So those sort of 3 steps.
Just
Yeah.
going back to insurances, because people will be
Yeah.
saying, oh, well, what is the right type of insurance? Why payment links? Like, what would you say would be the right type of insurance companies need when they're dealing with procurement?
So this depends on the size of the orders that you're
Of
placing,
course.
and there's a number of different sort of policies that you can pursue. But there is a type of insurance, and I think it sort of has different various names, but it is called like trade purchasing insurance that will cover you and your business if there is a payment you make, an order that you place, and that doesn't materialize for whatever reason. So, for example, if that company goes into liquidation or they just disappear on you. And so making sure right at the beginning of starting or growing your business, you have the right types of insurance in place is so key. And so I'm not an insurance professional, so I can't advise.
No, we can't give
exactly.
Yeah, we can't give
But
financial or legal or any of the advice, but it's just a little bit
any of the
of
advice, but I
have
would
a look at
say
this. Yeah.
have a look into it. Consult a professional in the early stages of your interior design studio. And if you haven't done it, now's the perfect time, and have a look at the different types of insurance policies that you need in order to protect both you, your clients, your products, your business.
Yeah, perfect. And then pay with a payment link. Why?
Yeah. So a payment link sometimes will allow you to pay with a credit card. If you pay with a credit card, typically your credit card company will protect your payment. So again, I've paid for a product, it never arrived. They've gone quiet, they're refusing to refund me. It's okay, your credit card company usually will take care of it. So again, it's that added layer of security. And also cash flow is a really important thing for smaller all interior design studios. Cash flow
Of
is
course.
king. And so if you are making those payments on a credit card, obviously, and then paying those off with the funds that you have from the clients, that's typically is the way that I see a lot of studios working. And again, it just gives them that buffer. You can collect points, you can, sometimes
Air
like the
miles,
rewards that you
Amex.
Air miles and Amex. All of
Yeah.
those small wins we need to be taking advantage of. So requesting and saying, I know that you would usually take payment via BACS. Do you have a payment link? We'd love to pay with Amex if possible, or via credit card, or whichever kind of other provider that you're using.
So would you suggest that a interior design studio has a business debit card and a business credit card, the credit card for procurement purposes and cash flow?
Yeah, that's what I recommend the studios that I work with of various sizes do in order to kind of support their procurement process.
Amazing. Now, when it comes to actually ordering and deliveries and logistics, what would be your top tip for those? Because this is also where things can go very wrong.
This is exactly where things can go wrong. So imagine you've got your long list of FF&E. It is signed off by the client. And this is a really key point. And this is why actually one of the main reasons that I love Programmer as a piece of software. So Programmer requires that the clients go through every single individual item and sign off line by line by line by line. Because I think most interior designers may or may not have had the experience of ordering an item, having a client change their mind, or saying that they didn't sign off on it, and there being that kind of breakdown in communication. And good project management and procurement, we really want to support that client relationship. We don't want any client relationship breaking down in that procurement phase. So if we know that we've got absolute sign off before we place the order, again, it's peace of mind for everyone. And we have we always say with procurement as well, collect your receipts. And I'm not just talking about your VAT receipts from when you place the order, although that's very important and we will come on to that. I'm talking about making sure that you've got confirmation and that you can go back at any point, and that could be with your client or it could be with your supplier. No, you confirmed on this day in writing, and I have that if I need it to refer back to. So that, I think, is a really sort of important phase. And then you're going through your long list, you're placing sometimes hundreds and hundreds of orders at once, depending on the size of your project. And usually the procurement phase is quite rushed. The client has paid. Typically, the design phase has taken longer than we expected, but the deadline and the installation date has remained the same. So now it's kind of down to the procurement side of things to get all of those order spaces quickly as possible. Rush, and it can happen, it's placing orders. It's like, we can all do that. But I always say that's the point where we need a system to catch or double check human error. Human error is normal. We've all made mistakes. And when you're placing hundreds of orders in a rush, I would say that it's normal to make a mistake. We know this. So what are we doing to double check it? And so I always have a safety net system in place. And that's not because I don't trust any of the procurement professionals or designers who I work with. I think they're all brilliant, but I also know that they're human and that we need to have a safety net that means, and that usually involves sitting down, and it is boring, but we go through and we cross-reference our line, our purchase order, our order information, the VAT invoice, and we make sure that everything is lined up within a 24-hour to 48-hour window of placing that order. So it has to be with an additional person, and I often act as that additional person to those smaller individual teams. So I then come in as that kind of extended member and act as a support, and we go through and we double check line by line, and I still do that myself because I've made mistakes in the past, and there's truly nothing worse, and it really does stay with you. So it's all about kind of putting that system in place so that, okay, mistakes happen, but we are going to put the system in place so that we are going to catch those mistakes before it's an issue.
I love that. And then when you're actually managing the installation process, what would your top tip be for that?
So my top tip of this easily is work with a consolidation warehouse. So clients will say to you, and I've had this a million times, oh, no, you can just have it delivered to my house. No. Work with a consolidation warehouse, no matter the size of your studio. And I think this is another really useful tip in acting like you are a big, successful design studio already. We only work with a consolidation trusted warehouse. They specialize in interior design, and there are a number of them out there. But finding one, building a relationship with them, having all of your FF&E delivered there, having it checked and having it grouped ahead of your installation plan, so that when you go to the install day, you are not going in blind. You know that every single item has been checked off your list, and I do this by having a shared Google Sheets with my storage warehouse. So when everything arrives, I upload all of the items, I say the date that it's going to arrive. I'm also a big fan of automation, so if we go beyond that date and it hasn't arrived, an automatic message is sent as a reminder, so I can chase that up. And we then go through at least a couple of weeks in advance, double checking this is there, this is there, this is there. And we have everything grouped in advance. So again, we know that when we get to site, it's going to be seamless, because installations can be incredibly stressful. You're often working to a very tight deadline. You might have other trades on site. So we need our side of things to run like clockwork.
Absolutely. Now, with consolidation warehouses, if you were like a one-man band, one-man studio, what are the types of costs? Because obviously when you start up, you're not going to have maybe the biggest capital with your business, and, might need to obviously weave these costs into your procurement. What are the costs of these consolidation warehouses?
So in my experience, they typically charge their storage fees on like a weekly basis, starting from around £25, going up to anywhere around £100, again, depending on the amount of stuff that you have. So typically as the project goes on, that increases, which is why, again, placing your orders strategically is so important. So when I say strategically, I mean, let's look at the lead times. We don't want to be paying 8 weeks storage fees, or we don't want to be passing that cost on to our client unnecessarily. But equally, we want to make sure that we are giving ourselves enough time to place those orders and building in a buffer. So I always say this, when you're placing an order, if they say to you, my lead time is 8 weeks, give yourself a 2-week buffer on top of that. I have heard every bizarre, weird, and wonderful delay excuse in the world. You just cannot predict these things. So giving yourself that buffer, and that's particularly relevant over the festive period as well, because as we know, there are seasonal shutdowns. So typically Christmas and also summer, suppliers will shut down for a mandatory 2 weeks sometimes. And so you need to add that onto your lead time. And they won't tell you this. This is something that you need to build in yourself. So they will say, oh, our lead time is 8 weeks. If that falls over the Christmas period, they might not be that forthcoming, and you might have to be the one that clocks, we might need to add a couple of weeks onto that.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, we have gone through so many amazing tips and value on this podcast. But if we were to round it all up, and you were to give our lovely listeners one final piece of beautiful advice ahead of the festive season and to take into 2026 in their business, what would it be, Elizabeth?
I would say find the right software that works for you in your studio. Implement a strategy that is going to work for you, again, and your studio, and stick to it. You can review it in sort of 6 to 8 months' time. Pick that as your lane, commit to it, and see where it gets you. You can review at the end. You can say, we might need to increase this or decrease that or change this or that. But make that your Bible, make that your framework, and then let it take care of itself.
Thank you so much. Today's conversation has been absolutely amazing, and I love it. I could sit and actually talk about this for hours, like hours.
I know, how boring of us.
I know, but it's our passion and it's what we love to do. And I think it's, that's why when I came across you on social media, I thought, this is the perfect woman for the podcast, because she is just going to have full of insight and full of value and knowledge. And I know that all of our listeners are going to be wanting to go and find you. So tell us all where we can find you on social media.
So my Instagram handle is at the Procurement Studio. I'm going to need to double check that. And my website is www.theprocurementstudio.co.uk.
Amazing. And we're going to actually put all of that into the show notes. So if you want to go and follow Elizabeth, you want to see what she does, you want to hear more about her, then please head to the show notes, find her details, and go and give us some love and support. I certainly know that I will be getting you in to talk to all my amazing women in 2026. And thank you so much for your time today. It has been amazing.
Thank you so much. So lovely to chat to you.
You're welcome. So stay tuned for tomorrow's podcast. It is going to be day 6, and we're going to be back with another amazing powerhouse. Take care, guys.